Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Twice as Lively with Ken Heckenlively. The title of today's episode is Am I Making Any Progress? Yes, you may be feeling something similar, trying new things and going, is it worth it? Am I making any difference at all? Well, I'm here to tell you that you probably are. You're just being a little bit too hard on yourself. And have I mentioned, you're looking very sexy today. Have you lost weight? Have you been going out to the gym? Have you been using that new moisturizer? Well, it really shows. Okay, as always, we begin with the simultaneous sip. What I always enjoy is some Peet's coffee, a cafe Americano with a little bit of room for milk and honey, because we like a little bit of sugar with our excitement. So get ready for your beverage. I remind you, it is 9:30 on the West Coast. So that means at the latest, it is 12:30 on the East Coast, which is generally not the socially acceptable time to have alcohol. But if you do choose to have alcohol in your adult beverage, I'm not going to be judgy, because I'm not a judgmental kind of person. I'm opinionated, but not judgmental. Okay, get ready for that simultaneous sip. Here we go. So good, so good. So why was I asking myself, am I making any progress yesterday? Yeah, I felt a little bit down yesterday. There's no getting around it. I did. So why did I feel a little bit down? Well, my new book, This Never Happened, is coming out, or it's out right now. And I've set up a number of interviews, or I've had my publicity people set up interviews. And so yesterday morning, I was supposed to have this big video interview, national show, right? So I get to the office a little bit early. I make sure I jump on the link 5 minutes early, and absolutely nothing happens. Instead, I see some guy talking about his real estate business. And the host, instead of interviewing me, is interviewing this real estate guy. And let me tell you, it was really boring. And I'm thinking, all right, okay, I guess I just have to wait till this guy finishes. And so that guy finished, and then the show closed. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? What am I, chopped liver here? Well, I come to find out that actually it was a rebroadcast, and the host was actually at the hospital because he had some sort of hip problem. So there I was, being annoyed for the wrong reason. And but my day kind of continued in that same vein, with a number of people forgetting that they had meetings set up for me. I think I went 3 for 3 yesterday with people whom I'd previously set up appointments, who appeared to have forgotten that I had made an appointment with them. So was I feeling good? No, I was feeling like shit, because I don't like to be forgotten. But, take a moment before you question whether you're making any progress or not. And so, as I was in the dumps yesterday, I was asking myself, really? Did I leave teaching for this? Did I leave teaching in order to be so thoroughly ignored? And so as I was in my doldrums, I said, okay, Ken, you got to pull yourself out of this. Let's review what you have done in the approximately 7 weeks since you left teaching. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm doing this broadcast. So this is my 48th episode, usually about a half an hour. So that means I've got about 24 hours of content out there. So when the mainstream media will inevitably attack me for my next book, rather than having nothing out there, people will be able to see one of these interviews and hopefully they'll say to themselves, he doesn't look like such a kook. He actually seems fairly entertaining, fairly bright, and did I mention very attractive? Yes, because men, what you can do is you can try a little bit harder, as your host does. Yes, that's why I'm always dressed, I'm always coiffed appropriately, and I shave. And since I do have a little bit of rosacea, I do moisturize with some creams, which should take down the redness in my face. Because, men, today is an amazing time. Today is the time when so many men are choosing not to take care of themselves. And so let's say you're a 6 or a 7. Okay. So, you probably are at least a 6 or a 7. But with a little bit of work, a little bit of attention to your appearance, maybe you can turn that 6 or 7 into an 8 or a 9, as your host has done. Yes, I know what I look like when I wake up in the morning. I know I've got a little bit of flaky skin. My hair is askew. I've got that stubble. Okay, I know that's supposed to look sexy. I don't think it looks sexy. But guys, upscale it. Look like a man that a woman wants to be with. And you'll be surprised how you find yourself head and shoulders above other men. Okay, as I was attempting to get myself out of my doldrums the other day, what other things did I think about? I thought about my new book, This Never Happened. My publicity team is doing a fabulous job, aside from booking me on hosts who have to go to the hospital. But one of the things that has happened is that we have a giveaway going on Goodreads, which is one of the top book platforms. The giveaway runs for about a month, but in the first 2 days, it has more than 2,300 people who've signed up for a free book. Now, what does that mean? That means of that 2,300, probably 10 to 20% are going to go, shit, I'm not going to win. I'll just go buy the book. So I got a couple hundred book sales there. Not so bad. What else happened to me in yesterday was the CEO of a potentially billion-dollar company called me back because we've got a book planned about his company and he wanted to update me on things. And I thought, okay, so some host blows me off because he's in the hospital. You really can't fault him for that. Maybe he just should have thought that, oh yeah, I got to make sure that guest knows that I'm going to the hospital. But aside from that, I'm not going to hold that against him. But that's kind of nice that I got a CEO of a potentially billion-dollar company calling me up and saying, oh, I'm sorry, it's taking me a day or two to get back to you, Ken, but I just wanted to update you on things. So I'm thinking, okay, I haven't been completely forgotten. And one of the things that I've done in the 7 weeks since I left teaching was that I've struck up an acquaintanceship with the CEO of Publishers Weekly. Publishers Weekly, along with Kirkus Reviews, is probably one of the 2 leading book review companies in the United States. And I just feel like I've struck up a really nice relationship with him. We agreed on some marketing that I'm going to do in Publishers Weekly, and Publishers Weekly is going to do a story on me. So not too bad. So what did I leave in teaching? So let me tell you the things that I liked about teaching and the things that I didn't. What I absolutely loved were my students. My students are, without a doubt, the best in the country. Also, the parent community. The parent community was great. So you should know that the district or the area in which I worked was not primarily Caucasian. In fact, the ethnic makeup of my school was about 11% Caucasian. It was overwhelmingly Asian. And so let me just say this about the community that surrounded my middle school. What an awesome community of parents. They loved their kids, they were interested in their success, they had strong families, they were fun and humorous. I got along with them great. Um, and so I just loved the students and the parents. And one of the things that I did that I think the parents really appreciated was when back to school night happened, which usually happened within the first 2 or 3 weeks of the school year, is the I would tell the parents, I said, you and I are collaborators in creating good human beings. And so I'm going to do the best I know with your kids because after my many years of teaching, I understand that they're growing up, they're learning things. And so I want to teach them lessons and I want them to be better at the end of the year than when they started. I know they're going to make a lot of mistakes, so I'm going to let them fix those mistakes. And here's where I think I was different than a lot of teachers because I heard this consistently. Because, I hate to say it, but behind the scenes, a lot of teachers talk shit about the parents. I never talked shit about the parents. What I did was I said to the parents and I said to the teachers, because I told them this, I said, you know your kids better than I do. I'm going to attempt to push them farther than they think they can go. But if you find that I'm pushing them too hard, just let me know and I'll make adjustments. Same thing if you think that your kid is really good at lying and they're lying to me, let me know and I'll push a little harder on them. I said, you should never have a problem with me, the teacher. What I do in my classroom should always meet with your approval. And if it doesn't for some reason, let me know. So I don't know exactly what that made me in the eyes of my fellow teachers, but one of the things that I observed over the years is I don't think my fellow teachers liked me very much as a person and as a teacher. And I, for the life of me, don't understand why. I have a couple ideas. So look at me now. Do you see that I am well dressed and well groomed? One of the problems I found with teachers, especially in my department, is they kind of dress like slobs. So I guess that's the first thing that's a problem. If you have a group of people and they're all dressed like slobs, and one is dressed nice and takes care with his appearance, how are they going to react? So I had that going against me. The other thing I had going against me is the other teachers didn't like to have the students read scientific material. Now, in their defense, They thought, oh, let's do lots of labs. Let's do lots of labs. And that's great. That's wonderful. But I'm sorry. Students need to read. Literacy is important. You know why Mississippi is kicking California's ass in reading scores and math? It's because they went back to the basics. Why is California not doing what Mississippi does? California has so many more resources, so much more money than Mississippi, and Mississippi, in their reading, math, and science scores, is kicking California's ass. As a native Californian, I take that as an insult. So that was a problem. Also, for some strange reason, it didn't seem that my fellow teachers appreciated the fact that I wrote and published books. 22. So this summer, my 22nd book will come out. Did any of my colleagues actually ever pick up and read one of my books? No, they didn't. And so I ask you, how can you be an educator if you don't believe in literacy? And, I feel like I was nice about it. I would gently try to push them along that path, but they didn't seem to like it. So, are a lot of teachers shabbily dressed? Don't believe in things like literacy, which is going to genuinely help the kids? Because the research does show that the more words which are in the heads of kids, the better they're likely to do in school. I have to tell this story now that I'm 7 weeks out. This was kind of comical. In my last year of teaching, I was set up to work with a couple teachers that I thought, I get the sense they don't like me. And they would exclude me from conversations. They'd have a lot of conversations on their own as they were getting curriculum together. And so at the beginning of the year, what I did was I went to the principal and I said, okay, Jenny, here are some of my concerns. My concerns is that these other teachers don't like me. My concern is that they are excluding me, and this makes it very difficult for us to provide a common curriculum. Also, in those instances where I do have ideas, I don't believe they're being listened to. Well, she wasn't having any of it, and honestly, she was kind of a bitch, and just kind of gave me fish eyes and said, well, the problem is you, Kent. It seems like they don't like you and they don't think you're a good collaborator. And this is something that I got to say, because this is like, you got to understand the California liberal teacher. They don't confront you. They simply ignore you. And so I said, Jenny, you're telling me that these teachers don't like me, but I have never had a negative interaction with these teachers. They have never told me they disliked me. They have never said I'm not a good collaborator. It is just that I'm being excluded. And so what I did in my last year of teaching was I created a list. I kept a list of all of the times that my fellow teachers were excluding me from conversations. And I really went over and above to try and interact with them. And so it was quite interesting when at the end of the year and the end of my evaluation, I met again with Jenny, the principal, and I had said, and she went over all the stuff that I had done over the year. And she said, Ken, you really have gone above and beyond. You have shown yourself to be a good collaborator. And I really see that you have worked very hard to address my concerns. And so I said, that's great, Jenny. thank you for saying that. I appreciate that because I am a hard worker. Um, but I still don't feel that the other teachers acknowledge that. And to her credit, because remember, I said she had been kind of a bitch when I brought it up at the beginning of the year. She said, yeah, I see that. That was nice. That was nice for the teacher, for the principal, who seemed kind of clueless as to what was going on. The fact that she actually had listened to me, she had spent the year observing, and she did come to the conclusion that the other teachers were kind of being jerks to me. And so that's all you can do. And so what was really funny in that first instance, when I was sharing that information with the principal, is I said, you know, I do a lot of things outside of school, and I am known as somebody who's great to work with. At that time, I'd published 20 books, most of them with collaborators. They want me to work with them again. I have fabulous relationships with the two publishers that I publish with. They just love me. The editors love me. They call me the best writer to work with, not just because I deliver when I say I will, but I'm enjoyable to work with. And when things don't work out, I don't hit the roof. So, what have I accomplished since I've left teaching? Well, I continue to have good relationships with those two publishers. Now I've got the CEO of a a soon to be $1 billion company that I'm working with. I've got the CEO of Publishers Weekly helping me out. I'm also working with leading members of Congress to bring their stories to market. So, when I ask myself, am I making any progress? I kind of think I am. I'm kind of happy about it because, and also I've got 3 other books which are in various stages of development. 2 of them with co-authors, once again, and both of the co-authors absolutely love me. And so that just shows me that I am a good collaborator. I am a creative person. And if somebody doesn't like me or doesn't like you, get the hell away from them. That's my advice to you. So, moving to the news, I thought that this would be a good segue because so many people are turned off by the news these days. And they're turned off for reasons which are understandable because I write about politics. And the question I get time and again is, are things ever going to change? So, for those who tend to be more conservative, what we see is a bureaucratic state which exists independent of the government, whether it's conservative or liberal, and just does whatever the fuck it wants. So, let's take a look at what's going on in the news and reasons for optimism. So, one of the Congress people that I work with a lot is Congressman Eric Burleson. That name may be familiar to you because he's really been pushing the UFO Disclosure Act, which means that those scientists and government employees or corporate employees who may have worked on advanced aircraft, possibly UFOs, and signed security clearances, they can disregard those security clearances and speak directly to Congress. That is something that UFO advocates have pushed for a long time. Eric Burleson has worked very hard for a period of years enduring several disappointments, but he finally got it across the finish line. That is an amazing result, and we're hopeful that the Senate passes it. Also, you may know that there has been a big effort by President Trump to pass the SAVE Act. In other words, if you're going to vote, you need to have ID. Just like when you go to fly in an airplane, you need to present ID. Just like when you need to buy some alcohol, you need an ID. Just like when you go to the movie theater and say, I'd like a senior citizen ticket, please, you have to present ID. So, again, another win. Yes, yes. Sometimes success in life is a game of inches. You keep fighting until the whistle blows. Let's talk about some other wins that you may be unaware of. So you may remember that there was something called the United States Agency for International Development, which sounds so lovely, doesn't it? But it's not. It's basically a big scam in which government money goes to left-wing organizations who advocate for left-wing policies. That's not something the government is supposed to do. It is also rumored to be a slush fund for the CIA. So, what happened? Trump shut it down. Isn't it interesting that USAID money is no longer flowing, and you've got situations where the Republican Party appears to have something like $128 million on hand, and the Democrats are broke. Huh, I wonder how that happened. And doesn't it seem like the shit stirrers aren't stirring the shit that much anymore? I wonder if it's because they don't have that USAID money. Let's talk about the most recent development, which is the Saudi nuclear agreement. So apparently, we are going to be providing nuclear information and assistance to the Saudis. Why are we doing that? Because their enemy, Iran, has been developing its nuclear program. We need a counterbalance to Iran. President Trump is wearing down the Iranians, and I think the chances of the Iranians reconstituting their nuclear program are going down significantly. But let's say they keep at it. Well, you got the Saudis on the other side. And what's the price that Trump is extracting from the Saudis? He's extracting from them a requirement that they sign the Abraham Accords, which pledges a state of peace with the nation of Israel. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about Israeli behavior, and I think that there is some criticism that needs to be leveled against the Israelis. Specifically, I encourage you to check out the comments of former CIA officer John Kirikou and his claim that the Israelis actively engage in intelligence gathering, specifically against our defense establishment, and steal our secrets. This is not good. Also, the continuing actions in Gaza are of great concern. I understand that, but it's also true that the nations of the Middle East need to come to a peaceful settlement with the Israelis, and what Trump is doing is he is maneuvering all that to happen. So, as you may think, that the question is, are you personally making progress? Well, if you're trying something new, I encourage you to just kind of not be depressed, just review things objectively. Maybe you'll find out you're doing better than you thought you were. And also, I think that our country is making some wonderful moves. I think that there's a lot of progress that's happening, not just on UFOs, not just on election integrity, not just on defunding the deep state manipulation techniques, not just on the Saudi and Middle East issues. I think there's a lot of good things going on, and success is a game of inches, but it seems like everybody's in the fight, and that's a good thing. So, hopefully, this is not the best part of your day. Hopefully, the best part of your day is interacting with people in your own lives, not just with some devastatingly handsome dude on the internet. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much.